The word unknown inscribed on a grave marker in Winneshiek County. Just how did the Winneshiek County Sheriff's Office, after more than 40 years, finally solve an Iowa cold case involving a decomposed, unidentified body? Here's how they did it. A gentle breeze brings the chimes to life in Winneshiek County's historic Freeport Cemetery. It's about a 3-acre plot of land just east of Decorah and serves as the final resting place for some 350 individuals, with some of the burials dating back to 1851. And for the past 40 years, this small metal grave marker displayed 7 letters of the word unknown, posing the question no one had been able to answer for 4 decades. Who lies in this grave below?
And I can't recall too many years where we didn't have a handful of times where different places, clearinghouse places, would reach out. We'd reopen the case and we would take a look at things, and we would always put fresh eyes on it, and it just never materialized.
This Winneshiek County mystery began in March of 1986. It does have a recent Blackhawk County connection. I'll tell you about that in a few minutes. But back in March of 1986, Winneshiek County farmer Vernon Allen, who's now deceased himself, discovered a decomposed body wedged between 2 of his large hay bales and his barn. An exhaustive effort, including a couple of autopsies, failed to produce any kind of positive identification. So the body was eventually buried in Freeport Cemetery with unknown on the marker, along with the year of the burial, 1986. Now remember, no DNA samples were collected back then because the DNA technology was not yet available. Unbeknownst to Winneshiek County authorities at that time, in 1986, 648 miles from Decorah, police in East Lake, Ohio, had been investigating the case of a missing man from almost a year earlier. Eastgate police were looking for 28-year-old Clifton Todd Womack, whom had left his mother's home on April 5, 1985, to look for a job, never to be seen again by his family. It would be 41 years before these 2 cases could be connected.
Then, as of recently, Deputy Tweten reached out to me and said he'd like to reopen this and kind of go at it very deliberately.
Enter Winneshiek County Sheriff's Deputy Cole Tweten, who wasn't even born when this case originated.
I grew up here, and I think my parents were probably 9 or 10 years old when this body was found. When I grew up, my dad always talked about it, and initially it was a fascination. I thought it'd be fascinating to look into, see what had been done on it, if there was any follow-up that could be done on it. But yeah, after looking at all the work that went into it over the years, I definitely kind of took it a little bit personal that there were people that have since even passed away, deputies that used to work here, that spent years working on it and weren't able to see it all the way through because the technology just wasn't there. So I'm fortunate that I work in a time period where the technology exists to do these things.
And with the new technology of DNA and things of that nature, he said, he told me the only way we're ever going to get closure on this is we're going to have to disinter the body.
I work night shift, so when I approached the sheriff about digging up human remains at like 3 o'clock on a weekday, it wasn't initially very well received, but after we had some discussions about it, he definitely came around, and we knew it was important to try to look at it again with the improvements in technology and things like that over the years.
So on April 16th of this year, as you can see in this drone photograph provided by Sheriff Dan Marx, authorities exhumed the man's body at Freeport Cemetery. Dr. Heather Garvin of Des Moines University and Iowa State Medical Examiner's Office then gathered DNA from the remains and also completed a detailed dental examination. Then they used the database of the National Missing and Unidentified Persons System known as NamUs. The NamUs database provided a perfect match of dental x-rays in the system. In addition, the new DNA analysis and forensic genealogy from the NamUs database also confirmed positive identification. The body was indeed that of 28-year-old Clifton Todd Womack of East Lake, Ohio, missing for the past 41 years.
I think we can all empathize that losing a child is everyone's worst nightmare. And that nightmare and that pain that people in those situations have to endure only is compounded when you never know what happened to your child. There's no closure, and you feel like that closure is forever out of reach. If we can help ease some of that pain by closing that loop, even though we acknowledge all of the answers still have not been answered. We do not have a 100% cause of death. There are still some unanswered questions out there, and we acknowledge that. But the fact that we can bring this family and this community some closure of at least putting a name to a human being who lived a human life, who was dearly loved by his family and missed by his family and thought about every day, that's pretty rewarding.
But you don't think this is a criminal investigation?
We do not. Yeah, we do not have any evidence to show foul play.
It especially became more rewarding after I talked to the siblings and found out some of the struggles and things that they went through over the last 40 years. So their mother, Peggy, spent the remaining years of her life looking for Clifton. They called him by his middle name, Todd, but she spent the remaining years of her life looking for him, and they actually shared that at that time she had to go around to local medical examiners and view deceased people to see if any of them were her son. So she did that for several years and ultimately died not knowing what happened to her son. And after talking to the siblings and hearing all the things that they went through over the last 40 years, and ultimately the brother Terry just provided his DNA about 5 years ago. So after 35 years of looking for him is when the East Lake Police Department reached out to him, and he ended up providing his DNA, which was kind of a missing link. So the way things fell in line as far as the time frame of things, it worked out pretty well that that DNA was already on file.
Really, this is a testament to Deputy Tweten and the work that he put in and the determination he had for a case that came in when he wasn't even born. And so I think that says a lot. And one statement that he had made early on when he really started taking an interest in this case is, this isn't an old case file that wasn't solved. This is a Winneshiek County Sheriff's Office case, and we have a duty to do whatever we can to get it solved. And I did have some apprehension because of all the logistics that were involved, and he stayed the course, and he was determined and persistent and kept talking to me about the case, and he ended up taking it and running with it, and the results speak for themselves. They paid off in the most meaningful way possible, and I just can't give enough credit to Deputy Tweten for the determination and never losing sight of what our ultimate mission is when we put on this badge, and that's a duty to all humankind, and that every life is precious and has immeasurable value.
Winneshiek County authorities actually believe that Clifton Todd Womack may have been dead in Winneshiek County almost a year before his body was even discovered. They later received during the investigation a report of a hitchhiker who was coming through Winneshiek County in 1985 in April. He stopped to ask directions and told the neighbor that he was from Ohio and headed to California.
Given the state in which he was found in, logic would carry the day that he had been deceased in there for the better part of that year since he was last seen.
Remember, I mentioned earlier there's a recent Blackhawk County connection to this old cold case out of Winneshiek County, and here it is. The Elizabeth Collins Foundation provided the funds for this investigation recently to move forward.
One of the major hurdles that we were kind of running into is funding, because not only was the initial disinterment brought up as a consideration, but we had to plan in advance what happens if we can't identify this person and we have to rebury him, and some of the costs associated with that. So that was a kind of a hurdle we were working on overcoming, and luckily DCI helped us make the connection with Drew Collins, and he basically offered up a blank check and said, whatever we can do to help, just go ahead and get it done and we'll fund everything. So that's exactly what they did.
A truly collaborative effort to bring this cold case in Winneshiek County to a close, headed by the Winneshiek County Sheriff's Office, involving many, many other agencies. You know, the 14th anniversary of Lyric and Elizabeth, the kidnappings and murders, is coming up here in a few days. So we're going to be talking in my next report with Drew Collins, Elizabeth Collins' father, about the Elizabeth Collins Foundation and what they hope to accomplish in helping solve many other unsolved cases in Iowa. That's coming up right here in just a couple of days. At the Angels Park in Evansdale, I'm Ron Steele.